Cleanliness is next to godliness, an old adage used by millions. However, thousands of learners in South Africa are subjected to these sanitation conditions, a stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots. While the unequal state of infrastructure in local schools is historic, 27 years later, some South African learners are still set apart by pit toilets. Post-1994, Section 24 of the Constitution guaranteed the right to an environment that was not harmful to one's health. This was later reinforced in the Water Service Act to include the right to basic sanitation. While these laws were generic for the country, there was never a law that spoke to the enforcement of these provisions in public schools. By 2011, the state of South African school toilets did not reflect a democratic state. Advocacy group Equal Education went on a campaign to compel the Department of Basic Education to ensure that the pit toilet system was eradicated in schools. The campaign by Equal Education led to court action by the Legal Resources Centre. The court action sought to compel the Basic Education Minister and all provincial MECs to ensure there were minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure. A year later, on the 29th of November 2013, Minister Angie Motshekga promulgated the norms and standards for school infrastructure. The department would have 3 years to ensure, among others, that schools with no access to water, electricity or sanitation must be provided with these basics. All schools were to be provided with adequate supply of classrooms, electricity, water and sanitation within 7 years. While the document covers a 17-year deadline, the issue of sanitation takes center stage. In essence, by 2019, no South African learner was to be without a toilet at school. With the clock ticking, in 2014, the DBE reports in its National Education Infrastructure Management Systems that 11,033 schools had pit latrines. The same year, the issue is thrust into the spotlight with the death of 5-year-old Limpopo toddler Michael Komape. By 2015, court papers indicated that 452 schools lacked water. 128 schools had no sanitation. Despite the looming deadline for the eradication of pit toilets, 10,419 schools are still subjected to pit toilets. Between 2015 and 2016, the numbers of schools needing sanitation intervention drastically reduced. According to advocacy group Equal Education, a new system of classification was adopted by the department.
We know that, and again, we're using department data. So we know that when we looked at the National Education Infrastructure Management System, which is a DBE database, the number of schools with plain pit toilets were set at around 11,000, just over 11,000. So this was about a decade ago. And now that figure falls at around between 3,000 and 5,000. And the reason I say between 3,000 and 5,000 is because the way that they recorded infrastructure backlogs changed over time. So initially, I believe they were recording the number of schools that have plain pit toilets and other forms of sanitation, which was that 11,000. But as time went on, they've disaggregated it to record schools with only plain pit toilets and schools that have other mixed form of sanitation and plain pit toilets.
By 2016, 68 schools had no toilets and 4,986 schools were still using pit toilets. In 2018, the death of 5-year-old Lumka Mkhetho, who fell into a pit latrine at her school in Bizana in the Eastern Cape, once again brought the issue of sanitation into the spotlight. The casualty spurred the highest office into action, with President Ramaphosa launching the SAFE initiative on the 14th of August 2018. The number of schools with pit toilets at this launch was numbered at 3,898. While many thought this would mark the end of the toilet crisis in South African schools, between 2018 and 2020, the Department of Basic Education reported that it had between 3,164 schools with pit toilets in the country, meaning the public-private partnership saw 738 schools relieved of the pit toilets in 2 years. Advocacy Group Section 27 says that the department has outsourced its responsibility, and that the recent economic situation has shown that the department cannot rely on the private sector to do its job.
In 2018, we actually went to 86 of our client schools and documented each of their sanitation needs. In 2020, in preparation for this court case, we went back to those schools, and we can cite at least 3 instances where there has been what the department is saying is that the work is in progress. But this has been since 2018. How can it take 3 years to complete? For example, one school had a requirement for 10 enviroloos. And still in 2021, they report that this project is in progress. It cannot take 3 years to erect 10 enviroloos. It really is an unconstitutional sort of dereliction of duty by the Department of Education.
However, the department paints a picture of all is well, saying that the numbers have changed and that it only has 2,500 schools currently using PET toilets.
2023. We need to have eradicated all the pit latrines. If things were to really go at the pace that we have now put in place, where we see an acceleration and the never-ending monitoring of our implementing agents. So we should be able to meet that target, because the DG every Thursday, he meets with the CEOs of the implementing agents so that there are no excuses.
While the department says since the implementation of regular project monitoring, things have changed, the continuous missing of deadlines does not bode well for those schools who are yet to receive sanitation relief. Mahlako Komane, SABC News, Johannesburg.